Any roll call?
Mayor Gerardo Sanchez,
Present.
Vice Mayor Africa Luna Carrasco,
Present.
Councilmember Mario Buchanan Jr.,
Present.
Councilmember Luis Cabrera,
Present.
Councilmember Jose Ponce,
Present.
Councilmember Matias Rosales, Councilmember Gloria Torres.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's see here. We're going to go ahead and go with the items for discussion only. Discussion and possible direction of staff in all matters regarding the American Rescue Plan Act, funds and allocation recommendations from staff. Monica Castro, Director of Finance.
While we wait for her, is there a deadline on this one?
I'm sorry, what was
Is
that?
there a deadline on this?
This is the preliminary, so the deadline, this is going to be one of a couple of, one or two work sessions that we're going to work on. But Monica would like to have something a little bit more concrete by February of 2022.
Oh,
I was just wondering for the urgency for the special meeting, that's why. Okay.
Well, one of the reasons we wanted to have the special meeting is, you'll see on the presentation, there's a lot of projects, but we really want to get mayor and vice mayor and council's input on some projects to make sure that we start working on those items that you might want to see that might not be listed. We do have items that are proposed by staff, but again, there might be some other items that you might want to add, and that gives us time to work on getting you numbers and proposals, so we're able to evaluate when you prioritize the list.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. I'm sorry for the delay. The reason we're holding this workshop is to give council an overview of the Arpa funds. Most importantly, it is to get your input and feedback. This is a huge undertaking, and definitely this is something that in order to make sure that funds are allocated where they matter the most, it is important that we get council input and the community input. Pretty much what we did is just have an internal meetings to give council a head start, like a base to just get started with these conversations. And I'm very sure that we're going to have more workshops to be able to identify where these funds can be of more benefit for the community. Can you put it like in the whole? And this is working. Right? Okay. Okay, so ARPA was signed into law on March 11, 2021. And the purpose of ARPA is to relieve to the local government to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic and address the economic impact. City of San Luis was awarded $11.6 million in ARPA funds Of those, we already received the first tranche. ARPA funds are to be delivered in 2 tranches. We already received the first one of 5.8 million on June 29, 2021. And the second tranche, we are expecting to receive it on June 29, 22. Also, the period of performance for the ARPA funds is that the funds need to be obligated by December 2024, and we should have spent the funds by December 31st, 2026. If we don't spend the funds, we need to return them to the Treasury. Also, we are required to provide periodic reports to provide a detailed accounting on how we are utilizing those funds. So that's why it is important that we allocate funds where they are needed the most, but also we want to make sure that we allocate them appropriately. So we don't want to get chased by the Treasury and then they ask us to return the money back. The eligible uses for ARPA, there are main 4 categories. The first category is to address the negative economic impact of COVID-19. The second one is premium pay for essential workers, revenue loss for the provision of government services, and infrastructure for water, sewer, and broadband. For what is not an eligible use, also we cannot use ARPA funds to make payments to a pension plan. We cannot utilize ARPA funds for grants when the federal programs prohibit the use of those funds. Also, we cannot utilize ARPA funds for reserves, and neither we can do payments with ARPA funds of our obligations. And also, we cannot use ARPA funds to fund legal settlements of the city. Best practices. So pretty much these are guidelines that provide us with a roadmap of things that we need to consider to make sure that we utilize funds in how we say, in a way that we can maximize the use of ARPA. And the first one is, the recommendation is, if we have grants or federal programs that can cover a certain project, better utilize those funds. Let's not use ARPA because we already have dedicated funds for that. Also, ARPA is a one-time funding. Accordingly, it is recommended to utilize some projects that it's just one time also. For recurring projects that are gonna add on and gonna continue in perpetuity, those will be better to try to include them in the budget process so that we can evaluate long-term sustainability. Also, it's a best practice to identify other organizations that also receive ARPA funds and partner with them to maximize the use of the ARPA funds. Sometimes working together, we can have a better impact in the community. Also, for ARPA, as I mentioned, we have revenue loss. It is recommended also that for the revenue loss, the same thing as with the grants, revenue loss categories should be only utilized when other categories do not cover for those projects. And the next one is all of us, staff, council, community, we need to assess the government operation and what are the needs of the community. We need to look for areas where funding has not been possible in the past. We need a stakeholder input. Again, we cannot do this on our own. We need to hear from residents. I think it's important that we start with this workshop so they know that we're working for them. They gotta know that we are thinking on the needs of the community. This is just the beginning. And the last one is, again, also we wanna make sure also that in our consideration, the projects that we select are aligned with the priorities of council. That's the reason that we are getting started with this workshop. The planning process. First phase. The first phase, pretty much it started several months back, and pretty much it was internal meetings with the department heads to assess the needs of the community and how ARPA can be best utilized or how can we align it with the local priorities. Also, department has provided input about what they would like to see prioritized, and we look for opportunities on where we can partner with local jurisdictions. This is the first phase, and this is what makes possible for us to put together the list that we are presenting today. The list is just a proposal. It's not final. This is just the beginning. The second phase is where we are right now, and it's just starting. It's obtain council input and direction in this workshop to make sure that what we believe that we see as a priority, council also sees it as a priority. Also, we want to hear from the community engagement. And the most important also is the last one, we don't want to rush. We want to take our time to carefully consider all alternatives to make sure that we are utilizing ARPA funds in the best way that it will provide the best impact for the community. So now based on the input from department head, this is a list. Like I told you, this is just the beginning. And this is pretty much what department heads came up as a proposal. This is not final. Pretty much everybody that had a need communicated a need to me. And that's how this list came to fruition. So in the categories, we put about like the priority that we consider, but we can change those priorities. We can eliminate projects from the list. We can add other categories. But right now, this is based on categories, not on projects, okay? And the category that we put in first priority is revenue loss. And I'm going to explain in the next part of the presentation of why we believe this is a priority. The second is water and wastewater infrastructure, premium pay, broadband, assistance to businesses, utilities assistance, and assistance to the prosecution and court. And you can see the amounts that we are proposing. So in the next portion, I'm going to explain that revenue loss and why we are proposing that one as a priority. So unlike the CARES Act, ARPA is giving us the flexibility, it's giving us the opportunity to ask for revenue loss. We couldn't do that with ARPA. We couldn't do that with CARES, I'm sorry. ARPA is allowing to do that. And what ARPA does pretty much, it gives us the flexibility to immediately allocate those funds in projects as long as they are related to providing services to government. It can go to streets, it can go to parks, it can go to fire. It's not tied to a specific category. That's why for us, having that flexibility and having so many projects that we have not been able to do, that's why we believe that this is an opportunity for the city to do some difference in the community. And the alternatives that we have with revenue loss are here. Again, initially we believe that we might not qualify for ARPA revenue loss, but the Treasury has a methodology to do that calculation. We did that calculation, and pretty much what it does, it takes in consideration the last year that we had without a COVID situation. That is used as the base. And then we make an assessment of how much growth we had in the past 3 years, and we have been growing at a 9% rate. However, when we include that to the base and incorporate the growth ratio, we are not where we should have been if COVID would have had happened. So we are, right now, if you look at the slide, at the first point of calculation, because Arpa gave us 4 points to calculate, December 31, 20, 21, 22, and 23. The point that we were able to calculate, because we already had actual data, it's showed and concluded that we had $2.3 million in revenue loss due to the COVID-19 pandemic. For the second point, in December 31, 2021, we don't have all the year completed. We are in November, and also we are some behind. We usually don't get the revenues. I think that right now we will be in October, probably, so we still have a couple of months to go. But we made a projection for 2021, and we estimate that the reduction in revenue also will be over 1 million. However, if you look in the table that I show below, due to other priorities like water and broadband, we only are taking 2.3 million, ceasing all the revenue loss that we had in 2020, and taking a portion of the revenue loss that we expect for 2021. Like I mentioned at the last point, with revenue loss, we had a broad latitude to use this funding to support government services up to the amount of the revenue that we lost. And like I said, with a lot of flexibility to use the funds virtually for any government purpose. In this chart, you can see the list of projects the department has submitted. Again, this is, just to start the conversations. We wanted to show something. Sometimes you can get a better idea of type of projects and what it can qualify, just to get you, so you can start thinking about what would you like to see in the community. This is just the first proposal. It's a draft. And again, numbers can change, projects can change. If you want to decide that there is, you want to see a project that is not there, that's what this workshop is about, because we want to hear from you. And that concludes the first part of the presentation. Do you have any questions in regards to the part that I presented? Okay, so now I'll pass the presentation to.
Thank you, Monica.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. So, as Monica mentioned, this part of the presentation is for water and wastewater infrastructure. Since the budget retreat and from previous years, we've been talking about different projects that are needed here for our city, as the growth rate, as Monica mentioned, is 9%. That's significant. You know, we double in size in 10 years. So I'll start here with the next slide. Okay. So there's a little bit of a description of the investment for infrastructure and some of the verbiage that's included for how these funds can be used for water, wastewater, as well as the timeline for the expense of these funds. I won't read them. I mean, they're here for reference, but I'm going to jump onto the next slide showing the sort of the list of projects. In the list of projects for the water, I mean, we know we need a Wellsite 5, and that's in the west part of town. Our Wellsite 5 would be, the way it's planned out is next to in our public work yard, and that's mainly to abandon Wellsite 1 and 2, which are the oldest well sites in town, They're very low production. But either way, those are that's a project that's needed. Um, Same thing for a storage tank for Wellsite 5. Um, we also have a complete Wellsite 8 that would be for east part of town. That would help serve the growth in that part of town. Some of the projects included here are also the major or significant maintenance projects, such as rehab of some storage tanks for Wellsite 7, upgrading VFDs for Wellsite 3, which is really electrical, and upgrades on well pumps. We included a project for AMI deployment, which has to do with the efficiency of meter reading and having more data available of the usage and problem solvings regarding the our approach towards having data in the at City Hall to be able to better answer questions. But that's an expensive project just because we don't have any of the infrastructure. That'll be all new infrastructure. And then the last one's also something to help our operations, SCADA. That's mainly having remote information from our well sites on a screen, on a cell phone. But that's really saves time on operations, having somebody to send somebody out there every time when there's problems or questions on our system. In summary, for these projects that were listed, it adds up to almost $12 million in the water department. In the wastewater, we have the expansion of our west wastewater treatment plant. We have some improvements for our east. One that it didn't make it to the list, but I think it will make it eventually to the list. Either this one or future funding opportunity list would be the expansion of the east plant as well. And that's just mainly because of the recent general plan amendment that happened. We know that all these acres are going to get developed. So we want to be ready. So that's going to be one project that will be added eventually to a list, not necessarily this one, but it's going to be around $10 to $12 million for the East West water treatment plant. There's again, we added some rehab or maintenance projects, rehabilitation of the East San Luis lift station, Los Alamos lift station, and then one project that we've been working on slowly, but it's rehabilitation of manholes throughout the city of San Luis. And that's one project we have listed $345,000, but that we're looking at about 60 manholes that need to be replaced, just mainly because of age and the type of material that was used. Now we use polymer. We should be good for 50 years with the new ones, but that's something that needs to happen. And then again, we listed a project for SCADA, which is for remote monitoring, remote data access, real time with what's going on at the different lift stations and treatment plants. On the wastewater side, we have a little bit over 15 million, adding a total of 27 million with water and wastewater projects. There was a table that was put together or compiled just showing pretty much showing in reference the total expenditure, which is a bottom line of 27 million. And there was 3 scenarios that were sort of thought out, mainly establishing if we were to spend zero money, how much money would be left to be spent or to be acquired, which is the line in yellow, from the total. And that means that we have 3.6 million in projected development fee revenues. And then we have 7.9 million in reserves. Considering those two amounts in all 3 scenarios, using $0 for ARPA, we would have to try and find 15.5 million to do the $27 million worth of projects. For scenario 2, if we were to use a little bit over $5.25 million from the ARPA, we would be needing to find $10.25 million to complete this 27 million. The third scenario is putting up 11.5 million from the ARPA to fund these projects. that would just, that would leave 4 million to be found somewhere else. So that those are just there for reference. Not sure if there's any questions or comments on the projects relating to water and wastewater.
Elohio, it's obvious that we have to do an investment. We are growing, especially after the changes to the major amendments that passed. And so we definitely have to look at possible scenarios in regards to bonds, in regards to the impact, the new. I know there was a study done in regards to the usage of water, the cost of water, the rates. And I'm pretty sure staff is aware that with the changes of the major amendments, that changes the whole thing. It changes the whole perspective of possibility. So the impact, we're talking about close to 4,000 new homes as a possibility in the next 2 years will definitely make an impact, especially in regards to infrastructure, water waste, east side wells. And so that kind of changed the whole dynamics. And so I agree with you. There's definitely an investment that needs to be done. We need to be careful and very cautious, and especially when it comes to spending. These are major projects. These are major commitment projects that need to happen. The city of San Luis is the fastest growing community in Arizona. And so with it comes certain responsibilities. Wastewater and water are the key things for development and growth. And so I do see the priority, and I thank you for that, Mr. Vera.
Okay, and just to reiterate, as Monica mentioned, it's a list. It's things that mainly is a list that we've had for some time now, and we've been chopping away slowly through the budget process. But they're here again for consideration. Thank you.
I have a quick question, Mr. Vera. In regards to, I know the study that has been completed, but it's still not out there. It's minimal, the effect on the, for example, rates, depending on how much you put. Was that correct? Is that correct?
Yes, so we didn't include anything, rates on the slides. But my understanding is that if we were to say in the revenues there, we're just going off of what's existing and what's implemented now. If we were to try and include rates in there, according to what our consultant is telling us, is if you were to include these projects in the rate for utilities, regardless of the 3 options or scenarios, the impact on the rates is minimal, especially upfront. The first few years, there's hardly any change between them. And when I say hardly, it's not like $5, a month or anything. It's cents the first couple of years, and then I think it jumps to $1.02 max, I think, by the end of 5 years. So we didn't include it here because we're not talking about rates. But yes, there was some information regarding the study that was conducted by a consultant.
Because that was one of the major concerns. Every time we talk about water rates, we always worry about it because no one wants to increase it. But the infrastructure is needed. So we definitely have to work with our developers. We definitely have to work with our residents in regards to this. And so I basically made that comment for clarification. Because we are aware of what's going on. Thank you, Mr. Vera.
Any other questions?
Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you. For the next slide, I'll leave it up to Jenny.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Jane Torres, Economic Development Manager. I have 2 requests. One is for broadband, and the next is for business assistance. I'll go through some of the requests and some of the information. First of all, let me give you my first request on Yuma County Middle Mile Fiber Network. Let me give you some history. I've been here for 8 years. We established a broadband committee where we had businesses, the agriculture community, IT, economic development staff. And what we were trying to do is try to get the existing service providers to invest into our broadband needs. We were not successful. So then when COVID started happening, we realized that our broadband needs were much higher because we had kids at home we had employees at home, and they weren't getting either the service that they were told they were being provided, or they just couldn't get the service at all. So at that time, the city of Yuma was working through a fiber master plan. Since they're part of our broadband committee, we were able to get them to expand the scope of work to make it a regional broadband plan. And so the consultants came up with this concept that you see in the map. It's a proposed out county fiber loop. What it does, what they call it, the middle mile, it kind of brings it to key locations where other service provider can tap into that line and be able to provide the services to the residents and the businesses. So during that time, Yuma County realized that they needed to take the leadership in this and that they were going to take over this project. So what they did is they went out for a request for proposals where they were very specific about what they wanted to do. What Yuma County wanted to do is they wanted to own that middle mile fiber network, and they wanted to lease it out to a third-party provider so that they can provide the service. So they would get a lease on using that fiber optic. So at that time, they went through the whole process. We actually brought in some experts from outside. For example, the ADOT, what they're doing is they're putting fiber optic in the highways. And so they done that. And so we brought those people to try to help us with this project. Arizona Commerce Authority, Jeff Savaca, has been a tremendous help in really guiding us as to what we want. Right now, all the federal agencies, if you want funding from them, they want a plan. They want to know what you're going to build, what it's going to cost, how you're going to fund it, and who's going to benefit. So, and this includes for all type of projects. And so Jeff Savaca really pushed us to say, you need a plan because that was going to get you competitive. There's more money coming in. You need to be ready. So going back to Yuma County taking the lead, they went out for a request for proposals. They received 5 proposals from WANREC, EX2 Technology, Allo, Common Wireless, and Gila Electronics of Yuma. They went through the whole process of interviews, and they went ahead, and Allo seems to be the company that will be presented to the Board of Supervisors on Monday, the 15th, to be able to authorize the county manager to be able to start negotiations. Now, the cost of the project at this point is $37.5 million. At this point, Yuma County, they are willing to commit 50% of their ARPA funds, which is $20 million for this project because it is a priority for them. What they have requested from us, and at this point, not when the process started, is that they would suggest a 25% allocation from each of the community, either from their ARPA money or from general fund or any other source that they think could contribute to this project. With that, you have a balance of about $6 million. We know that ACA is going to have some rounds of funding for that. Based on the infrastructure bill, we know there's going to be more funding available. So the county, along with the rest of the communities, will work in trying to get grant funding. But at this point, this is the projected cost. Yuma County does not believe that it will go higher than 37 million. Actually, when they start negotiations, if it's authorized by the board, they'll try to look at certain changes that will lower that amount. But for right now, that is the request. Now that is being brought to the city managers as a potential. That is still, there's not a commitment yet from all the municipalities. There was a commitment to work together, but not when it came to the funding because that had not been discussed. Now, the broadband committee will be coming on December the 8th to make a presentation to give you a lot more details, especially in the technicality of this. But this is one of the projects that is being proposed at this time and is being requested by all the municipalities. I don't know if you have any specific questions on this.
I have a quick question, Jenny.
Yeah.
So basically, the county would be the owner of this network?
Correct.
Okay, and they would sublease it to us, for example?
Yes, they would lease it to, for example, if Allo is the one that constructs the fiber network, and then they would be also contracted to do the last mile to be able to bring it to your business, to your residents. So they would be. That would include government. We would do the same. We would have to contribute. That question was specifically asked, and the answer was we're doing this investment for the community. The little kids that are at home that have not been able, that have struggled because they're at school, and I'm sorry, they are at home, schooling, or employees that are there. So this is more focused on the community benefiting from this project, not so much the government, the facilities, our facilities, but it was more of the community. They will be able to get faster speeds at a lesser cost to them. That was the answer that I was given into that specific question.
So to clarify, they're not leasing, the county's not leasing it to the municipalities. Whoever it is, if it's Spectrum that brings in the service to the subdivisions of the city, they're leasing it to them, and then we're paying our regular Spectrum bill, Verizon bill, whoever is the one that's bringing the service to the area.
But yet we're committed to put 2.9 million.
Right. To build the infrastructure to bring it in.
Ah,
Well, again, this is more of servicing the community, their needs, the kids, the families, the businesses. It wasn't so specifically as we will, you can tap into that fiber optic, city government buildings, and we won't charge you anything. No, there's a point that you have to continue to maintain it. You have to continue, for the operations. So there has to be a cost to it. And so that question was asked. And I think the answer was, this project is focused on benefiting the community, not so much the government, but it's the community.
Our benefit would be the investment increase in the economic development of the workforce, education. I mean, every company that comes in here is asking, do you have fiber? Do you have this? Agriculture needs it for the drones. So the investment to us is not seen directly. It's seen indirectly with all the growth that we're going to see in our area,
Correct.
jobs and all that.
That's a good way to put it,
Yeah.
Councilmember Rosado. Yes.
Okay, question. What happens is, for example, let's say, for example, the city of Somerton decides not to put the 1.38 million.
Well, that's a really good question that's up in the air right now, because these numbers were not discussed in the original concept. So if, San Luis does not want to provide the funding, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you that. I don't think the county has an answer for that yet. I think that question will come up at the county supervisor board meeting, is what happens if a community does not want to contribute. Obviously, if we're successful in grant funding, maybe our commitment will be reduced. That could be one answer, but I don't have an answer for you.
I think it's a worthwhile investment. I totally agree with it, but I need to ask those questions because people will be asking those questions. Because people will say, well, how much is it going to cost us eventually? Because we're using our money for this project. And I understand what the county is doing. They're taking the initiative. But would be nice to see the overall structure of this commitment. Of course, it has to go through the county first, county board of supervisors. Once that occurs, I think we're going to have definitely a lot more answers. But my biggest concern is I'm pretty sure the city of San Luis is ready to commit. But what happens to the other community?
Yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, it's an investment to our future. It's an investment in infrastructure. It's an essential. But some communities don't think as it is.
And one question was brought up, what if we don't do this? Well, you can stay the same. You can stay where you're at, and you're still going to be behind other communities that have worked together as a region to invest into something that, based on technology or what's happening, especially with COVID kind of pushing it that way, is going to be one of those infrastructure needs that you need, just like you do natural gas and electricity. So I'm definitely for it, because I do see the long-term benefit. But, there are questions that need to be addressed, and there's going to be those same questions that other council members are going to ask. And the county, after they make their presentation on Monday, they will be going to the different communities to make that presentation so that you can ask those questions and they can answer those directly.
Thank you.
Anything else? Nope. All right. So let me get to the small business grant program. Now, during the CARES money, all of the communities except the town of Welton and ourselves, we did not provide a business grant program to the businesses. City of Somerton, City of Yuma, and Yuma County did provided this grants. Now, let me give you some background on this as well. When the federal program started releasing these programs, there were more loans. And so I can tell you that the businesses in San Luis and Somerton, most of them, they said, we don't want more debt. We need assistance through a grant. Now, given that some of these programs, they were forgivable loans at the end, if you can justify the use of the money, but a lot of them saw them as debt and they didn't want to address that. They had issues with the banks because they had to go through the banks. And if you did not have that connection with the banks, then you were kind of out of luck to some extent. And then you had to go through the whole paperwork, which a lot of the businesses are smaller businesses that did not understand the process. So there were several programs, a lot of them really based on loans. There was one, the restaurant revitalization. This was more of a grant. So we were able to work with a lot of our local businesses to be able to help them tap into this resource by doing all their paperwork. I can tell you that the 22 restaurants that we worked, 7 were denied because they actually had higher incomes than the previous year. And I'll talk a little bit about that. 2 did receive some funding. 5 were pending, meaning that they were qualified, but they ran out of money. And some did not disclose the information if they got it, if they applied. Some of them were not interested, and so on. But some of the restaurants, what we had seen is that they had to diversify into how they did their business. So, they had to let go of people, but they brought in family members. They brought in their 401ks or their savings. They started doing more deliveries and pickups. So they really started to diversify to make things work. Some of them were able to make it work. Some of them were not able to. So not all of them did qualify, yet they still, felt that there was no assistance from the city. And I was directly told that. The governor did come out with some additional funding, but most of it is more of, businesses that emerged from COVID, Health Forest Alliance. The IRS does have an employee retention credit. So there are programs out there that could help, but not to the extent that I think businesses were looking for. What I've been told is that why did the rest of the community supported the businesses in San Luis didn't? And so that's why I'm bringing this issue up. This is just a draft that could be changed. Based on what other communities did, I kind of put this together, ran it with the staff. We could put $200,000, 10% for the administration. That's Local First is the one agency that pretty much did all the application, the advertisement. They pretty much do everything. They did it for all the rest of the communities. City of Somerton, they kind of, in the business type is like just commercial. Any commercial. City of Yuma put in different types with different amounts. I kind of did that as a draft saying, maybe the smaller hair, nail salons could get up to 2,000. The clothing store, furniture stores, maybe 2,500. Restaurants that, were hit hard, maybe they could get 5,000. Requirements, we put our own requirements of what we want. Either they have to have a physical location, business license, they should have been in business since January. They had to have a total sales decline by 25%, less than 25 employees. Annual gross income less than 500. Maybe we focus on the ones that did not receive anything, or we put in, if you receive less than 10,000 in support, then you qualify. If you receive more than 10,000, you don't qualify. Obviously, no corporate or franchises, really more focused on the small business. The grant uses could be for rent. For example, I think county was for mortgages for 2 rents or rent. Could be good utilities, operation, outdoor space improvements, because we know that became big. Time frame, we could start in January, do it for a year. I could tell you that most of the other cities that worked on this type of program, they were out within a couple of months. They didn't not last very long. So this is up to your discretion. I'm telling you what I hear from the outside, from the businesses. A lot of them say, look, I'm still struggling. Yes, the port of entry is opening, but, I still got a whole year of struggles that I had to make to diversify, and I need your assistance. So that is up for, again, this is just a draft. We can change the requirements. We can change the amount. We can do whatever you decide. I don't know if you have any specific questions for me.
Any questions? Edna?
Thank you, Jenny.
Oh, okay, so, okay, so she added, some of the programs that I have previously brought to you, at a different council meeting or work session. That was kind of the information of the other programs that they were conducted, in 2020, so.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council and staff. Jorge Perez, Billing and Collections Manager. As part of the ARPA presentation, I'm bringing in two small projects. Let me go to the next slide. The first one here before you, it's a utility assistance for the residents of San Luis. I don't know if you remember, but earlier, some time ago this year, I brought in this project for your consideration as just during a work session for your direction on it and thoughts on a possible project for the future. So here is again proposing to use some of the ARPA funds for this project. This is merely for water assistance to the residents of San Luis that are struggling in maintaining their bill current. We're proposing a $50,000 amount to be split into 2 years, into 2 fiscal years. And in this program, it's also proposed to be in conjunction with a nonprofit organization, Wake Up, which it'll help us to manage and administer the program. They'll be in charge of conducting or processing the applications and determining eligibility for the program. Like I said, we're proposing 25,000 for the first year and then 25,000 for the second year. This is as well as the program that Jenny mentioned. Eligibility is to be established by the city of San Luis, and we can say if you're struggling with your bill, you're behind, you receive a delinquent notice, or you're scheduled to be shut off, you may qualify for this program, among other eligibility options that we get to decide as council and as city staff. That'll be the first program. I don't know if you have any questions about that one.
No question.
So the second one, during the pandemic, obviously, as we all know, we had to close City Hall for some time due to the outbreak of COVID, as well as any other business or any other resident of San Luis. We kind of struggled through the process. We went home. Some of us, some stay at the office, and we had to keep the city running. In this specific department, we had to keep the process of collecting payments for the utility services that were being provided. And one issue that we encountered is that we were close to the public, and we still have those residents that even though we do have multiple payment options, being online and credit card the most popular ones, we still have those residents that want to pay with cash or use cash and come in person to the office, and they were finding a difficult payment method during those times. So this proposal is for a utility payment kiosk. This is an option for utility payments to be used 24/7 by the residents of San Luis. Proposed location to be City Hall, outside of City Hall, or even the PD lobby area, which is obviously open 24/7. This is an eligible use for ARPA because even though we're promoting a payment option, we're also promoting social distancing because it's a self-serve functionality. We're also promoting try to mitigate the pandemic by reducing the interaction between two persons. The proposed cost for this project is only $15,000. and it's for one machine, one kiosk. This is a proposal that we have right now, but with the idea and option that if in the future, whenever we get, because obviously, as said before, we're getting the substations on East San Luis for city and fire, we might put another machine, another kiosk out there. I just brought in some of the pictures. Spoke with some other communities that already have this. Glendale and the city of Mesa are some of them. If you have any questions on this one.
That's 13,000 a piece?
That's a one-time fee, and that's pretty much for the integration to our billing software. And then the kiosk with the vendor that we have been talking, that the machine doesn't have a fee for us. It'll remain under their property, and we'll just be it can be at the decision of council. The contribution will be per transaction, in the same way as credit card payment online, and it can be absorbed by the city, the cost, or it can be passed on to the resident.
Thank you, Jorge. Any questions, concerns? Thank you. Thank you, Jorge.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I can't hear the microphone in my ears very well. Can everybody hear me? So the prosecutor and the court had in-person hearings and trials suspended for an extended amount of time. They received orders from the Supreme Court Office of the Administrative Court. So we didn't have controls over how long it would be suspended, which led to a backlog of cases. Currently, as of yesterday, they were starting to schedule into April to catch up on the trials. And they're scheduling at least one trial a week, and in some weeks it's 2 to 3 jury trials a week, plus the bench trials, which means the judge decides, not the jury. The prosecutor's office would like to have a temporary prosecutor there to catch up with the trials and to review the pending cases. As of yesterday, they had 15 bench trials set, 26 jury trials set, 302 misdemeanor cases opened, and 29 long form reports to review. That means they can't take a citation to court. They need a proper complaint reviewed by an attorney. So that's the request. We would like $60,000 for that project to get caught up on the caseload.
Okay, why are we behind? Were they not working during the pandemic?
Yes, they were. It's just that they were doing as much as they could by phone because the court orders that shut the court down. So they got through like preliminary hearings, pre-trials, but then when it gets to trial, they're stuck. And if the other side asks for a jury, then the courts are saying no jury trials right now, it's too dangerous. So again, they're stuck. And often with DUIs, they do ask for jury trials. And we do get a lot of DUIs because of the border. So
The hiring of an assistant prosecutor, that's for how long? The hiring of a prosecutor would be for how long?
it's just a temporary. The funding is just for temporary help. So I would imagine it would just be like 6 months or so.
And those 60 is enough to hire someone like that?
Oh, yes. Mhm.
Okay. Any more questions from council? Thank you, Kim.
I guess I do have a question, okay? So is that hiring or subcontracting? Would that be hiring or subcontracting someone?
Uh,
Okay.
we could do it on a contract rather than an employment basis.
That's what threw me off, because I'm like, then you have to worry about,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, doesn't make sense.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. We do have someone for the court if you had any questions on the backlog for the court. If you'd like to ask.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item that I'd like to talk about is premium pay. This is something that wasn't part of the CARES, it's part of the ARPA funding that's available. So premium pay offers additional support for those employees performing essential work during our COVID pandemic. The Treasury defines essential work involved in regular person interactions or regular handling of items that were also handled by others. A worker may not receive premium pay for telework performed from the residence. So that's one of the things that was part of the stipulation. The Treasury asked to prioritize the low-income earners providing essential work during the pandemic. That might be a little bit misleading because it is, what they categorize as low-income earners is different from what we are going to be designating. And of course, examples of essential workers are fire or police, janitors, sanitation workers, are some of our truck drivers, the waste plant, and those types of things. So discretion is allowed to the cities to add additional sectors to the eligibility list. So as long as additional sectors are critical to protect health and well-being of residents, and that's key. That's something that we wanted to work with finance and kind of evaluate because a lot of the department directors, when we were talking about premium pay, is that they felt they qualified. Some of the wastewater, our facilities, and some of the other people maybe that were providing the service to the resident during COVID. So we're hoping to compile a list and propose to all of you an allocation and maybe a tier system to be able to provide this funding, this one-time funding for those employees that qualify. Currently, we're looking at allocation of $300,000. Again, that is just something that we were looking at when we looked at other communities, but that is at the end of the day up to the direction of mayor and council. How would you like us to proceed? One of the options that we're looking at is a kind of a tier system where if of exposure, which would mean that the amount of time they were involved during COVID. It's more regards to attendance. And so that could be, and I'm just throwing a number out there. We're just kind of looking at things, could be anywhere from $1,500 and working our way down for the different percentages. So we would like to come back to council and propose these different items for supporting the premium pay. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
There's no doubt that premium pay should be given. That's an opportunity. We have a lot of employees that were constantly being exposed to COVID, and I think we should be compensated. It doesn't take a citizen to say something or comment for this to happen. We've already been talking about this way before a certain person decided to decide and say we should actually provide funding or some form of compensation to our employees. For clarification, for the record, we've been looking at for this for almost a year. And the thing is, I think this is something that should happen. I think it, with the help of council, will happen. For the record, for clarification, we're not reacting to a comment made in social media or anything like that. Our workers should be compensated and will be compensated. And thank you, staff. Thank you, finance, for bringing this proposal up for us, because it's definitely it's going to happen. But it's just the amount, and we want to make sure that everyone is evaluated fairly. Everyone who was exposed, everyone who is exposed on a daily basis, and make sure we don't exclude any employee. So good job. Thank you.
And again, Mayor, we're hoping that we can look at the eligibility list, working with finance and working with the department directors, that we might be able to do this if all goes well, be able to support and do this for our staff in February of 2020. So.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a good time frame. And I think that time after Christmas, when we spent a lot, or when we overspend a little bit more than usual, I think it will definitely help our employees.
And traditionally, the city has done a one-time COLA for our staff employees, but this is totally different from that.
Yeah, this is not a raise. This
No.
is not considered a raise. This is for your hard work and dedication in times of this worldwide pandemic. And that's what we should look at. Okay, people are going to try to say it's a raise. People are going to try to say it's not. It's a big thank you for your hard work and dedication and staying safe and keeping our community safe. And I commend you. Thank you. Well, guys, it's 7 o'clock.
Yeah, we're close to it. So, if no other questions,
You will be receiving comments from council and guidance, and I thank you. We have plenty of time, but thank you for taking the time and effort to make these. We definitely going to talk about things that we want to see in this, because we only have limited funding, but I think we should actually look at the overall impact we can do with this money. And I always say low cost, high impact are what we're looking for. And I'm pretty sure council has ideas. I'm pretty sure staff has ideas. And like you mentioned, Monica, we will be getting the feedback from our community. Needs are different, okay? So when it comes to city government, but we definitely have to hear from our community, and it's limited resources. People think $11.6 million we can do a lot, but we also spend it very quick, very fast.
Yeah, thank you so much for the support. Definitely, we cannot do this without you. And like I mentioned, this is just the beginning, the start of a conversation. But I think that more workshops will follow.
Very good. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, staff.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you. Mayor, I
And,
just have a question.
please.
Louis, when or how would we get the community's input regarding the?
we'll be
money.
working with finance and department directors to schedule maybe some townhouse meeting and really look at, some dates. I know that the holiday's coming up, but we'll look and see so that the community has an opportunity. Maybe after we get some input from mayor and council too, then we can have more ideas of the projects, and so they can review those and have the opportunity to see, and maybe they have other ideas that we can bring back to mayor and council to review.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. There's a motion, there's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. So we are going to have a 5-minute break, so IT can get ready, make sure that everyone is set, and thank you once again. 5 minutes starts now.